Robert West is a native Texas veteran born in Corpus Christi and raised in East Texas. Robert and his wife Carol have been married for 28 years and have 2 beautiful children who are both military veterans. Robert proudly served in the U.S. Navy for over 30 years and has been working in avionics around Texas, across the U.S., and overseas. Robert has previously served on the Economic Development Board of Little Elm and is the founder of one of the largest conservative Tea Party groups in the state of Texas. Robert currently serves as the Republican Precinct Chair in Delta County and is a staunch constitutionalist and the author of the 5-Star Plan, a how-to manual for protecting and preserving the Constitution and our Founding Fathers' vision for America, which has got glowing reviews from conservative politicians across the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Robert West.
Thank you so much. I am Robert West, native-born Texas veteran, and the author of the 5-Star Plan. So, to tell you why I am passionate about what we're about to cover needs a little history of my family. My grandfather ran away from home at 14, halfway through World War I. He fought in France for 2 years before they found out how old he was, kicked him out, and sent him home. When he got back, he discovered they had passed something called Prohibition while he was gone. And, well, long story short, he had to go to the reservation to get drunk. And he won my grandmother in a poker game. This is 1920. People still rode horses. They still went to reservations, and they still won wives in poker games. But they stayed married, you know, until the day they died. They had 5 children. My father and his brothers grew up being called half-breed to their face, and we wouldn't think about that today. But back then, that was a thing. Their advantage was they got to attend the whites-only school because nobody in that little town that knew my father in France would dare go to his house and say his children couldn't attend that school that he helped build. In the words of one man, he killed more people than that man had shaken hands with. So things do get better. My father fought in World War II in the Pacific. He was a duck boat driver. They said they were going to get 80% casualties. He survived that. They found out he hunted squirrels as a child, so they made him an anti-sniper expert. It's the same thing, except the squirrels shoot back. At the end of the war, he said, "Great, I survived, I'm going home." No, you're not. Now you're an explosive ordnance disposal guy. You're going to be here in Japan for another year blowing stuff up, and there was a lot of stuff to blow up. He said that was the scariest part of his tour. When he came home, though, he wanted to use all that money and build a house for his parents. But he couldn't. He had to go down and buy a permit. They had instituted that while he was away. So he had to buy permission from the state to build a house with his own hands for his parents on land that our family had owned for decades. I had an older brother off the coast of Korea. I had an older brother in the 70s that won a Purple Heart. Me and my young brother served in Gulf War I. And when my little brother got home and he went to buy a permit to build a house with his own hands on that same land, he was told, "Sorry, we changed that last year. You can't buy a permit anymore. You have to have a contractor's license, and those cost $40,000. Or you can hire a contractor." My son got out of the Marine Corps a year ago, just in time for the lockdowns. So for 4 generations, my family's put their lives on the line for this country to fight for freedom overseas, and every single time we've come back to less of it. So I've decided, my son's decided, my brothers have decided, that we're no longer going to go overseas and fight for freedom. We're going to stay right here and do it. We are sick and tired of watching career politicians on both sides of the aisle take away our freedoms in return for their power. We are the bosses in this nation. We write the checks. We pay for it all. And if I'm going to pay for the music, I want to say in what songs get played. I'm not the bottom of the heap. I am the owner. I am the public. They are public servants. Servants don't tell us what to do. It's not their role. So I do get a little passionate about this because a year ago, about a year and a half ago, our city governor wrote a bunch of mandates. I want everybody here to pretend you just won the lotto. $500 million. That sound good? Yeah. It's a nice little thought, right? You know what the first thing they tell you to do? Is build a great big house. Big enough for you and your extended family. Let's keep them safe, right? Hire a security team. The biggest, baddest, best armed, best trained people you can find. But they're going to want a contract, right? They're not going to come here on a whim. So they want an employment contract. And you want to make sure you can fire them. Think about the rules that you would put. You can't go in my kids' bedrooms unless it's a life-death situation. You can't break my stuff. You can't steal from me. You can't hurt me, my family, or my guests. If I fire one of you, the rest of you got to kick them out, not let them back in the house. All that sounds reasonable, right? Okay. So I got really good news for you. Everybody in this room has won the lotto. We are here at this point in time in this nation. And I've been around the world twice, and let me tell you, I wouldn't take living anywhere else for $500 million. Not by a long shot. I love Texas too much. I love the people. I love the food. I love everything about it except for the summers. And for anybody here not born in Texas, from the bottom of my heart as a native Texan, welcome home. Because you living here means you thought this was a better place than wherever you're from. And that's the biggest compliment a Texan can receive. So we won that lotto because we were born here at this time. That big house is our nation, our state, our country, our county, our city. Those servants that are protecting our rights, those are our public servants. Those are our guards. That contract looks a lot like the Constitution, and those rules they can't break. That looks a lot like the Bill of Rights. Now, nobody in this room would let a guard break one of those rules, would they? Not one of you. Not two of those rules, not three of those rules, none of those rules. Last year when those mandates came down, Greg Abbott broke those rules. He broke up a bunch of those rules. Number two is equal protection under the law. He came out, he said, you, sir, are non-essential. You are not allowed to earn a living. But you are. And you're not. And you are. We didn't vote on that. We didn't decide that. That was one man woke up, put 3 million Texans out of work. That's more jobs than we've created in the last 10 years in this state. Now, I'm a boring guy for an ex-Navy guy, right? I'm really boring. I have no tattoos. I don't drink. I don't smoke. Yeah. Why would I have a picture of my body I wouldn't be caught dead with hanging on my wall? I've been married to the same wonderful woman for 28 years, and we have 2.5 children. I say 2.5 children because my wife is just assuming I'm only half grown.
Oh my goodness.
So, what do? You know, we go through this. This Bill of Rights said, you got to maintain the courts. Right here in Dallas, the Appellate Court of Dallas adjudicated 1,700 cases the year before COVID, and 9 during COVID lockdowns. The courts were closed. We talk about that equal protection under the law and those essential and non-essential jobs. Well, as much of a God-fearing man as I am, if your pursuit of happiness is to run a spit-shine concession at an all-leather bar in Deep Ellum, my God, that's an essential job if that puts food on your table and a roof over your head. And I'm not able to say it's not, and neither is Greg Abbott. You want to talk about things that we can't stand in this life, and I know this gentleman will agree with me. We can't stand socialism. We hate socialism because it always leads to tyranny. You know what tyrants in socialist countries are known for? They're known for shutting down houses of worship, seizing private business, limiting your gatherings to 10 or less, putting people under house arrest without a charge, without a trial, without even a crime. Some people call it quarantine, but it's house arrest. I could rattle off 14 violations, and I haven't even got to the point where Greg Abbott decided to spend $250 million of your money, my money, without going through the legislature, which is not allowed. Number 3 on that list of the Bill of Rights is you shall maintain a Republican form of government. The Republican form of government is not one man writing the rules, one man enforcing the rules, and one man telling judges how they would rule on those rules. That's all 3 branches of government, and that's not allowed under our Constitution. And what did our House of Representatives do to uphold their oath? Nothing. They let them do it. And when I called those people, to a person, they lied to me. I said, what are you doing to rein him in, put him back under that Constitution? And they said, my hands are tied. He's the only one that could call a special session. And when I said under 665.04, you can call your own special session to consider impeachment, or the House can call it, I got a variation of, oh, you know about that. Well, let me tell you why we didn't do that. And I'm like, no, the conversation's over. You just admitted you're a liar.
Yep.
Now I'm no longer interested in influencing you. I'm interested in getting you replaced. You don't lie to the boss. So I started going to county chairs, GOP county chairs. So far, we've got 14 county GOPs that have stood up and censured Greg Abbott, their own sitting governor of Texas. That's never happened before. I've got 2 more counties on the way, and I've got a whole bunch of counties recruiting to fill those empty precinct chairs to get enough votes to do it across Texas. I want to embarrass that man into political oblivion. I don't even want to see him lose in the primary. I don't even want to show him up. I want to teach him, every other elected official from now on, that if you do that, if you break that document that we put our lives on the line for, you're done. And people talk about the Disaster Powers Act. That's garbage. A law cannot add or subtract the powers that the Constitution gives a public servant. If it did, we wouldn't have any point to having a Constitution. We wouldn't have any point in having a governor. They could make him a doorman one day, and they could make him a king the next, and that's exactly what they tried to do. So that rule is unconstitutional. Let's say, well, wait a minute. How can he even force evacuations during a hurricane? Folks, there's no such thing as a surprise hurricane. Not one. They're like in-laws. They're going to say, I'm going to be in your house about Tuesday of 2 weeks from now. What's the proper response to that? Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be in town. I don't have to force people to leave if there's a hurricane on the way. You want to stay for a hurricane? Knock yourself out. It's a free country. Stupid should hurt. It's not that the wind's blowing, it's what the wind's blowing. Okay, I don't care how many sit-ups you can do. A Volvo is going to leave a mark. So, anyway, so I've been traveling across Texas. I've been doing that. I wrote a book. And that's pretty scary, I'll tell you. I don't scare easy, but writing a book's kind of scary. I kind of envisioned myself being like the jerk, you know, writing refund checks late into the night because it was garbage. So I sent it out to 5 most conservative people I know. And I got 4 of those responses back, and all positive responses. So I said, okay, good enough for them, good enough for me, we'll put it out, we'll see. So far, fingers crossed, everybody's loved it. So, if you think about your favorite politicians, they're all new. Am I right? Yeah. The most conservative senator in Texas is a man named Bob Hall. Works like James Brown. He's everywhere. He was never elected to a position before he had the one he has now. Never been in office. Brian Slayton is the most conservative representative down there in Austin. Never held an office before he has the one now. Remember some contractor named Donald Trump? Right? Did a pretty good job, right? Never held an office before he became the most powerful person in elected office in the world. Now let's talk about somebody you might not like as much, quite as much, and how many years they've been in office. Joe Biden has been in office for 50 years. 50 years. I was 5 when he was sworn in. Look at me, that's too long. There's not an apple in the world that will not rot to its core in that amount of time in the barrel. This is not a fight between Democrats and Republicans as much as people want to make it. It's a fight between career politicians and the rest of us. Career politicians in the Democrat Party and the Republican Party will work together as a team to shake the jar so we tear each other apart like ants. We outnumber them 100,000 to 1. We don't have to put up with it anymore. Do you want some hope? Here's some hope for you. Anybody here could go to any convenience store in Texas. There's a 7-Eleven right around the corner. You can park your car. You can see who opens the door for who. They don't care about color. They don't care about age. They don't care about who your family was. They don't care about your job. They don't care about your bank account, what church you go to, or if you go to church. They'll help you with that thing on the top shelf, won't they? They'll smile at you. They'll open that door. That's my country. That's my Texas. That's what was worth all of that blood and sacrifice that my family's put in for over 100 years. And that's what I want back. Those Democrat voters are not our enemies. They're our co-workers. Some of them are families, friends, our bosses, our employees. We're not enemies until the people in Austin or D.C. make us enemies. And we don't have to play that game. See, sex didn't work, race didn't work, social classes didn't work. Now we've got vaccines and masks. Well, maybe that'll work. Maybe that'll divide them enough so that they don't pay attention to what we're doing to them. They're taking away your freedoms, folks. I'm asking everybody here to take one step up. If you vote in some elections, vote in them all. If you vote in all elections, volunteer for a campaign or volunteer to run. If you're given the honor to serve this country, this community, to be one of those guards, for God's sakes, serve a couple of terms and get out. Not just for our sake, but for your own. That's why I wrote my book. People ask all the time, what can I do? What can I do? We've got precinct chairs, we've got county chairs, we've got the state chair, and all those people can do things. They can protect our freedoms, or they can choose not to. And there might be some supporters of Greg Abbott here tonight, and that's okay, you have that right. I put my life on the line for it. But you cannot support Greg Abbott and a limited, constitutional, Republican form of government at the same time. It's not possible. So I've been traveling Texas, trying to get this done, and I've been very successful. Me and my wife have seated over 100 precinct chairs to empty precinct chair positions. We've got 3 times that many that we know about signed up to run for precinct positions that are filled with cronies and cowards that refuse to do anything. And we're not going to stop. And we didn't ask permission, neither do you. Every single one of you has the power to do more. No, none of us can do everything, but all of us can do a little bit more. And that's what I'm asking you here to do tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Big round of applause for Robert.